What's up, y'all? And of course, welcome to another alternative factuals video. Okay, so this is going to be the first video of the week. My scheduling arrangement's a little weird. Like I said, during the summer, it's a little awkward for me. But, I'm going to be talking about Doctor Strange 2, but this video is actually primarily about Moon Knight. Now, for many of you, you may not know who Moon Knight is, and I'll dive into his origins. I won't get into it in detail because obviously there are other channels out there that kind of go into his character and, everything about him when it comes to his past and his character development, all that stuff. So I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I'll give you the bare bones basics so that way you have some sort of foundation in terms of what I'm going to be discussing and my connection to Doctor Strange 2 and the multiverse of madness and all that stuff related to Moon Knight. But before I dive into any of those details or anything related to any sorts of these two shows or movies, whatever, in the MCU, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think about, Moon Knight the character. Are you excited to see him in the MCU or Doctor Strange 2? Let me know your feelings. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to get to the comments at some point eventually. Like I said, it doesn't usually take me too long, but I will answer comments down below in every single video at some point or another. And without further ado, let's kind of dive into today's video. All right, so Moon Knight has been announced by the MCU. It's going to be a series that's going to be on Disney Plus. That information I'm pretty sure a lot of you already know. Now, despite that information being public, and I'm pretty sure you're well aware of it after seeing it online for a couple instances, I'm going to dive into the basics of, Moon Knight. Moon Knight did make his first appearance in Werewolf by Night number 32 in August of 1975 and was created by Doug Minch and Don Perlin. So Moon Knight is one of those OG people. He's been around since, like I said, 1975, and basically his origin and a lot of what's going on with his character is not brand new. He's old. He's an old man if you would actually age him in real life. Well, not really an old man, but he's definitely middle-aged for sure. But besides all that, Moon Knight is a very interesting character because mostly it's just the way that they depicted him over the course of years. He's had these psychological issues that, some people deemed they weren't really sure if he had powers or not because of those psychological issues. Even though we did get certain confirmations, it was just like, it's like the TV show Legion, where you feel like you know what's going on. You feel like, okay, this is taking place in the real world, and then, other parts are taking place in his head. But then there were a few of those scenes where you're just not really sure what's really happening because they're just trying to make it ambiguous, kind of leaving room, I guess, for error, I guess. So let's say if something didn't work, they'll be like, okay, that was just in his head, or that was a part of his, split personality situation, but, situations like that. But, we'll get into that as I kind of cross that bridge. Now, when it comes to his character origin, not just, obviously his publication history, he was born in Chicago, Illinois, and his name is Marc Spector, and he was a Jewish American rabbi wayward son. I think they made a point to mention that simply because, like I said, his parents were rabbis, and obviously the nature in which he gets his powers is a little odd or contradictory in terms of his upbringing. But at the time, he was a heavyweight boxer and became a U.S. Marine after the fact. But then he did suffer some sort of injury. He was kind of beat up by I forgot the name of the guy. But he was beat up by a guy and basically was left in the middle of the desert and almost died. The dude who beat him up actually was called Bushman, not Bushmaster, Bushman. So he was defeated and he was left in like these really sub-zero temperatures in the desert of the night at the time where he was fighting. So the Egyptians who worshipped the ancient gods basically found him, brought them to the temple of Khonshu, and basically Khonshu allowed him to have a second life, but he had to be his avatar on Earth, and Khonshu is like basically the god of the moon in this particular situation. And then he dons on this silver cloak and becomes a crime fighter, and thus Moon Knight is born. Now, the reason why I'm tying this, or the possibility that this show might be tied to Doctor Strange, is because a lot of you may understand, like, for example, like Bast, the Panther goddess, who gives Black Panthers his abilities to rule over the dead. An interdimensional being who is extremely powerful in multiple rights and, derives from Egypt themselves. So the reason I say this is because Doctor Strange is one of those characters where he is definitely one of those characters where he has ties to multiple multi-dimensional beings who he can tap into the abilities, like Sidorak, and technically he could tap into Bast or Khonshu or any of those beings that, you know, give people powers on Earth, either being an avatar of some sorts. But Doctor Strange does have the ability to not only commune and communicate with these people, but he has done so throughout the course of comics, so it's not anything out of the realm of strange, you know, pun intended. But all right, let's get into the real nitty-gritty of the whole connection here. Now, the Multiverse of Magic is going to be a movie that's going to explore more of the, well, I'm assuming is going to explore more of the magical aspects of the multiverse, the multiple dimensions, as well as where Doctor Strange draws a lot of the power, or where magic resides in different dimensions. Now, remember, Doctor Strange is a practicing magician who draws powers from mystical entities such as Agamotto, Sidorak, Icon, Ashtar, and Ragador, and Watum. And I'm pretty sure a couple of those names I might have butchered, maybe, possibly, but that's just the way how they sound. But he uses these people who are interdimensional beings who do not exist on the same earthly plane as him or the rest of the people you may know, like Iron Man. But that does not exclude people like Bast or Khonshu from being able to influence people on this earth. And as someone who is called the Sorcerer Supreme, or someone who is in charge of that gateway in the Sanctum Sanctorum in terms of these multidimensional beings, he definitely can have access to these people when it comes to accessing power, as well as just overall monitoring how much influence they have over the dimension that they're currently, you know, occupying. Now, what makes Moon Knight very interesting, a lot of people say like, oh, he's kind of like Batman. Like, he developed this split personality. It's a little iffy in terms of like if this was in response to basically him developing powers as connection to Khonshu. Others say, you know, it's just a side effect of, you know, just his experiences overall as Moon Knight. But, you know, I'm not going to get too deep into that particularly per se. But overall, Moon Knight does have abilities. Well, he did at one point. He had enhanced strength, he had enhanced reflexes, and his strength actually increased depending on the phases of the moon. So that was pretty cool. But then, you know, at some point, if I remember correctly, he lost his abilities, and then, you know, they didn't really confirm that, I think, until about 2006. I forget when it was. It Moon Knight Volume 3, I believe, when they kind of confirmed that his body was really like, just nah, you don't have those powers anymore. If I remember correctly, it might have been Moon Knight Volume 6, but if I'm wrong, correct me. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. Moon Knight Volume 3, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was when it was. Okay, anyways, besides the point. So yes, he has powers, he has abilities, and I'm pretty sure they're going to start off with that when it comes to the TV series, and then they might eventually work their way out of that situation by saying, you know, he lost it. And in the comics, he lost it because apparently he was disobedient to Khonshu. I don't remember the exact instance, but it might have been the whole Bushman situation, who knows. But what makes this interesting is like characters like Moon Knight, you know, Black Panther, people who draw powers from, you know, the beings that are not from this plane of existence. The multiverse of madness, I feel like, is going to dive into what makes magic so powerful, at the same time what makes magic so dangerous, as well as it's going to explore a lot of the connection with Scarlet Witch and her abilities, and what the Infinity Stone did when activating her ability. Maybe, you know, they're going to decide to take the mutant route and just say the stone activated her X gene. Or maybe they won't take that route and say like, hey, it gave her powers, but the powers in which she's drawing from is not from, you know, the earthly realm, and she's tapping into chaos magic from, you know, somewhere else. You know, they can take whatever route they want at the end of the day. But Doctor Strange is one of those beings who, or one of those people, he has to, you know, regulate a lot of this magic. You know, he himself may not be as powerful as he originally was way back in the day, when he can literally do just about anything, but nonetheless, he still has to regulate a lot of these situations and a lot of these people when it comes to interacting with these beings of this level of power. Now, something I think a few people are really trying to speculate or kind of make a connection towards is like, you know, the Book of Ashanti and, you know, the Darkhold, for example. Basically two books that contains a massive amount of knowledge of, like, you know, the Book of Ashanti white magic, and then Darkhold having black magic in the Marvel universe. You know, people feel like they're going to start to actually dive into that in the second movie, and then correlating a lot of these extra dimensional beings to that, because there are some beings who are, I guess, considered dark magic. And then, you know, it's going to be interesting. Me personally, I don't think they're going to dive too deep into that, at least not yet, when it comes to magic, even though they can definitely do a whole entire series about it for, you know, 23 episodes, 8 seasons when it comes to magic, because there's plenty of other shows that do that. You know, Vampire Diaries. I think to some degree they did in Teen Wolf, but that is besides the point. All right, so let me just bring this all together so I can wrap this up in a nice, beautiful bow. I know I hit a couple points, and you know, I'm not necessarily all over the place, but just so you can kind of understand in a single point in what I'm trying to say here. Moon Knight is he's an interesting character. You know, he has abilities, you know, he has interactions with, you know, supernatural beings like Khonshu, much like Black Panther, much like Doctor Strange does when it comes to the Vishanti. When it comes to all these extra dimensional beings that are extremely powerful, he does have interactions with them. Now, they are connected, and definitely in Marvel Comics they are connected due to the nature of where they draw their abilities from and the nature of Doctor Strange's job, as well as where, you know, Moon Knight manifests his abilities and his correlation with those beings himself. So Doctor Strange will have some sort of involvement either now or later or at some point with Moon Knight, simply due to what he's supposed to do on Earth as Moon Knight. He is the avatar of Khonshu, meaning any being that draws power from anywhere. Even the Juggernaut to some degree has had interactions with Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange is very much familiar with Sidorak. And that's what makes it so interesting, is that, you know, a lot of these shows that people seeing on Disney Plus or that are coming into the next phase of, you know, Marvel movies, Marvel series, or just overall Marvel's multimedia, you know, aspect, they're going to be involved in some way or another in most of these shows or movies or whatever. When it comes to, you know, very similar characters that have either similar backgrounds or similar powers, they're going to have, you know, heavy correlations with each other. And that's what's going to make this very interesting. I'm actually excited for a lot of these things, even She-Hulk to some degree, but some people are not ready for that kind of heat. But you let me know what you think about this. Do you think like these films will be connected when it comes to Doctor Strange and Moon Knight, when it comes to these extra dimensional beings of power and magic? And yeah, and if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below, and I hope to see you later on. Peace out.